I think we have to bring forward a range of issues to look at the culture of business.
The biggest issue is when does a founder entrepreneur hand over the reins and step up to work on the business rather than in the business.
We're seeing high level of mental health struggles in business owners. We're seeing they're not able to always communicate what they need.
Funding is an issue for an organisation, particularly if they're looking to scale their business.
It's always an inside job, so to actually get to scale up, I think there's a mindset shift that's needed in a business.
I'm Mike Harris and I help businesses to successfully grow their profit and turnover. In the last year alone, I have helped over 20 companies at least double in size. And I work with a mixture of firms for small, medium and large businesses, including startups and multinationals. Every business grows differently. There's no single playbook to follow. The most valuable lessons come from those who have been there before and truly understand what works. That's why we seized the opportunity to interview as many experts as possible at the recent Festival of Entrepreneurs, the UK's premier event for ambitious business owners. A crucial element in scaling your business is strong leadership. In this episode, we pose a critical question to our experts. What are the biggest challenges facing business leaders at the moment?
I have been joined by Fox. You've just opened the Festival of Entrepreneurs. What do you feel is the biggest challenge right now for leaders?
Well, I think there are two. I think one is the sometimes reticence to celebrate our own success, to talk about, where we're doing really well, where we're being global leaders, where we're being market beaters. But at the same time, we need to be asking, how can we do what we do well, even better, even faster, even more successfully? And so these are the challenges that we're looking at. And so I think we have to bring forward a range of issues to look at the culture of business. Could we be doing better there? And that culture is both those who are developing businesses and require some of the access to capital that we've been talking about, but also the culture of those who are providing that capital, the regulators, the governments, who are actually producing the environment within which there's perhaps a risk-averse culture in terms of lending. So it needs to be going in both directions. So both cultural, institutional and financial, all the elements that we're discussing, hopefully in a great deal of detail.
So could you just chat to us a little bit about the challenges that we know entrepreneurs face in terms of leadership?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is when does a founder entrepreneur hand over the reins and step up to work on the business rather than in the business. That is the magic model. Founders are great at the founder stage, which is copying, pivoting, testing, proving out the business model, getting the growth going. And then it's about hiring your replacement. Step number 5 in my book, How to Make $1 Billion in 9 Steps. And it's really difficult to do. But if you find the right person that can be focused on growth, far better than the entrepreneur. I was a rubbish chief exec. The success in taking HomeServe from a £50,000 startup to a £4 billion sale was hiring my 10-country chief execs that did a far better job than me and growing HomeServe into a global company.
What are the common struggles and challenges right now that business leaders are facing?
What a question. I think one of the biggest things is the economy and uncertainty, and I think they're pausing or hesitant on a lot of things. I've just written an article actually on the cost of inaction, of not taking the time and living in the moment to take action. So in my world of a customer experience, people might go, yeah, we need to improve that, but let's just see how we go for the next few months. And that could just compound and become worse and worse and worse. So if you take that action now, that might be beneficial to the organisation. So I think that's one of the biggest things.
And what do you find the biggest challenges are for the leaders within business when you approach with that attitude?
Yeah, I think it starts with the inner you, doesn't it? You know, it's always an inside job. So to actually get to scale up, I think there's a mindset shift that's needed in a business. So part of it is around, it's not just confidence, it's actually, you know, a deep-rooted desire, clear purpose, knowing what you want to achieve in life and for your business. But often that's the blocker, because when you unlock that, actually, then the rest follows. So that's what I tend to find is the first area to really hone in on with business leaders.
Well, I think something we come across a lot of the time is sometimes people are a little bit naive to their weak points and not necessarily understanding their weak points too well. Again, that's a massive part of what we do. But what we find is when leaders have a good understanding as to what they're not so strong at and plug those gaps well, then we see companies tend to thrive.
So the main thing for my clients is probably setting boundaries. That's the biggest thing. We often assume that the people at the top, and I found this in my corporate career working in HR, we assume that the people at the top, they've got it all together, they're very confident, they know what they're doing, but actually what I'm seeing is they actually struggle in the background. We're seeing high level of mental health struggles in business owners, we're seeing they're not able to always communicate what they need, always manage their team under times of stress and financial difficulty. So I think boundary setting is probably the one that is covering everything from managing their clients, but also into things like managing their own team, even managing their home life. It's like, how do I say no as much as I say yes? We're yes people, right, as leaders.
What do you find the biggest challenge when you work with a business at the beginning? What is the biggest challenge that they're facing at the moment?
I think knowing actually who they are. We put on, as leaders, we put on masks, we act and say things that we think we should be saying. And when I speak to them, they're kind of like, right, who are you without that? And then they're like, oh, I don't know. And that's what I think is causing the distrust with leaderships. I think that's what's causing the toxic workplaces. It's having such an impact because people don't know who they are really. So they act, like I said, like they should be, and they think they should be. And actually what that's causing is this kind of disconnect. Everyone's too much in their heads now. There's no connection in the workplaces with themselves. And it's kind of like we're running on this treadmill thinking that we've got to run this massive race that doesn't end up being ours in the first place. It's not ours. I think knowing who you are at the deepest level to then create a business around that then attracts the clients, the staff team that actually align with you as a business owner to then be able to scale productively, safely and in alignment, yeah.
What do you find the biggest challenges for the leaders within AI at the moment?
I think one of the biggest challenges is governance around understanding how they actually can safely put AI into their business without it being too much of a risk, either from a legal perspective or from a customer-facing perspective. And also understanding the extent of what it can do. So how is it able to solve their problems? And that's the thing that we can really help with.
I mean, there's a whole host of challenges outside of what they can control.
Sure.
And I put those to one side. I think inside is often leaders doing too much and not releasing control to the people within the business. And I guess going back to my first point is sometimes there's an emperor's new clothes element within a business. And if your leader asks you a question, you give him the answer you think he wants, not the answer you should. And I think that's a real problem.
I think two things. First, obviously funding is an issue for an organisation, particularly if they're looking to scale their business. And again, we can give them impartial, informed advice on where they may be able to secure funding. Again, we're not a funder ourselves. And the other part is really, what do I do next? This is the business, this is where I am. Where can I move my business? Where can I diversify my business? Because again, in challenging times, entrepreneurial people always look for a plan B or another route.
Access to talent is a big challenge. I mean, access to finance, I think the right kind of finance. I mean, obviously, there's certain challenges that banks are better at solving than others. Access to finance is a big one. I was just talking to a business earlier on at the stand here, and he's looking for a really specific type of stock financing. And there's not many options out there, you know, so it's kind of, our job as a bank to be able to help guide and support, and even if we can't provide a solution to help that growth, then suggest other things that maybe the entrepreneur or the founder hasn't thought of to support that growth journey.
I think there's a couple of challenges actually. I think firstly it's about keeping up to date with technology and helping communicate those changes among teams. Having the effective communication channels is often a bit of a point of pain, but also bringing it to life as well for various teams as well. How these changes actually impact them and the clients that we serve.
I think it's being given the tools to be able to do the job efficiently, and the way that technology is changing the landscape, trying to keep up with that is really difficult.
So I see that in terms of leadership, especially when the leadership companies, they want to scale up, they face the challenges. They are struggling with in terms of the growth and then how to find the leads and how to make the decisions. And especially when the leadership executives, they leave the company, they left their data in silos, and there is always learning gap, and sometimes they need to work on the strategy again. So these are the kind of the challenges they have.
The biggest challenge for me in leadership is getting people around me who follow the same vision that I have. Once you get those people lined up, once you start hiring the right team, then the vision kind of happens itself. The real challenge is what happens if you get somebody who's conflicting within that, and how do you clean that system out? How do you get the right people in the first place?
I think the biggest problem that leaders are facing at the moment is they're torn in so many different directions. It's so hard knowing where to spend your money, who to spend your money with, what the best place to put all of your kind of time and energy into, and it can feel like it's such a black hole of time and expense. But I think at the moment one of the biggest things I'd say to leaders is just think about where you want to be in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, 12 months' time, and then break it down from there. Really work your way backwards, because if you know what your North Star is, if you know what you're aiming for, suddenly everything becomes a lot more manageable and a lot more streamlined.
What do you find is the biggest challenge for women in business right now?
I think there's a lot of confidence building to be done, and also breaking away from the all the tags that we have as women that pin us down to how we need to be and how society sees us. So I think there's a lot of work to do around that.
What do you feel the biggest challenge with leadership and that inclusivity space is at the moment? What is that biggest challenge?
I think it's definitely understanding what's out there, understanding how people feel. That's kind of like that's the biggest thing, I think, and that's why we've brought in the VR labs that we've created. It's okay to say, oh, I've heard of autism, I've heard of ADHD, but what actually are they? How do they feel for somebody that is in sensory overload? Or, what about some of the others? Like, so we cover 20, there's neurodiversities that involve complete face blindness, so they don't recognise faces. They wouldn't recognise their own family to a severe degree. So if you're new to a job and you're going into the workplace every day and you don't recognise faces, you're not going to know your boss from like your colleague, from someone in the canteen, So I think it is definitely just being aware, and it's really difficult, I think, as a leader to run a business and be everything to everybody and still have to know everything. You can't.
What do you find is the biggest challenge within leadership in those roles?
I think, obviously we are trying to enable their leadership by making sure the funding's in place. And one of the biggest challenges is these founders are spending 80% of their working week talking to investors rather than running the business. So the more we can help them to get more effective at that, the more they can free up time to focus on what's really important, which is growing the business. So it's a real distraction for a lot of founders, but it's a very necessary one because they need the money. So we're all about trying to free them up to have more time to do the important things in the business. But at the same time, you obviously have to look after your investors. And strategically, you can actually find that private investors can do a lot more than just write a check. They can open up their contact books. They can be on your advisory board. They can can be a sounding board for your own ideas. So, there's a lot more to this than just raising the money if you handle it correctly.
Leave a comment if you're watching this on YouTube. You can message me directly on LinkedIn or email me on the email address that you see here. And don't forget to like and subscribe by clicking on the bell icon for more valuable insights into leadership and strategy. Just a quick reminder of where you can find us. You can watch us on the Leaders and Strategy YouTube channel, listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, Podbean, Podchaser. We upload every episode onto LinkedIn and onto the website. We've now got the Leaders and Strategy blog running, which captures the highlights from each episode. And we've also got the Shorts channel, How to Grow Your Business, where there'll be clips from this episode. Thank you everybody for watching. Hope you've liked it today and you've got a lot out of it. And I'll see you all soon on the Leaders and Strategy podcast, when we'll be talking about strategy, leadership and all things business. I'll see you then. Thanks.